Welcome back to the DNA Pest Control Podcast. Aaron,
And Daniel,
thank you. Uh, these are always our favorite.
we just talked about it.
We did. We literally just talked about it. The Q&A is always fun, but the best part about it is always having a pest guest. And this pest guest is actually one that I've met multiple times. We talked to one of his employees a while ago, and we had him on as a pest guest. And so now we finally get the famous Brian Goldman. Hey, how's it going?
Good. How you guys doing? I don't know about famous, but I'll take it. I like it. Maybe now after the appearance on the DNA podcast.
There we go. No. We haven't even got into the good stuff yet. I just threw you up here, so we made sure we have everything right. Aaron's going to take it away.
Yes. Brian, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Brian Goldman here is with us, owner, CEO, Big Blue Bug Solutions. Also, he is a candidate Rhode Island Small Business Person of the Year. So congratulations on that. We can go a little bit into that as the episode proceeds. Over 14 years in the industry, we're actually taken over, but much longer. Brian Goldman.
Yeah. And I'm going to call you out on it as well because I have it taped up on my wall is you are on the top 100.
Yeah, we made the PCT top 100, so we were number 70 this past year. Excited to see where we land in May, and we just keep moving up. It's really exciting time to be part of our business, part of the industry. We're just excited.
No, that's awesome. What made you finally decide to kind of go through that? Because I know you do have to give them information and.
Yeah, it's funny. My father, when he was running the business, never really wanted to volunteer that information. He came in through a generation that was much more private. You know, they didn't like to talk numbers, good or bad. It just didn't matter. It was just something that they always thought was fairly private and was just meant to be kept in-house. But I think in today's day and age, we're in the information age, and employees like to know, and everyone tends to be able to figure it out anyway, just by doing a quick Google search. So we said, what are we doing? We might as well be proud of it and start talking about it openly with everyone. That's part of being in the information age.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And that is definitely a hard thing because I grew up in that as well. My parents being very closed about certain information, didn't want to give it out. And I was always the one that's like, hey, does it really matter? Like, who cares? Be proud of it. And so that is awesome that you're up there, and we plan to get up there with you. So we're still working on it.
I am sure you will be. You guys are going to pass us. We got to at least make sure we're always at 99. So once you pass us, if we fall back, we're still at 100.
Oh, no. Oh, man. So Brian, tell us a little bit about the picture behind you.
Sure.
Because it's so significant of, really who you are and what you've done, and really your dad and your family. What's the story behind that?
Yeah, we have a long family history. We're really, really proud of it. It dates all the way back to my great-grandfather, 1906. He was 17 years old. He was living in the border of Russia and Poland. And at that time, we're a Jewish family, and there was a lot of anti-Semitism going on at that time. And so he saw, you know what? I got to make for a better life for myself and my family. So he traveled across Europe, hopped on a boat in London, took the boat all the way through Ellis Island, and eventually settled in Rhode Island. We don't know why he settled in Rhode Island, but what we do know is by the time he got here, all he had was a nickel in his pocket. With the nickel, he bought a pail, a sponge, and an apple because he was hungry. He sat down, he ate the apple, and then he got up and he started going door to door offering to wash people's windows. Within 5 years, he turned it into the biggest window washing company in Rhode Island. It was the true American dream story, something we're really, really proud of. Then when my grandfather, his oldest son, came of age, he went to Cornell, graduated, and they said, I think I'm ready to go into a business. And they said, you know what, we really need to diversify. And so we had some cousins who were in the pest control industry. And he said, I hear pest control is a great industry. And so at a desk at that window washing company, we started our pest control company, New England Exterminating and Fumigating. And it was my grandfather's own thing. He wasn't with my great-grandfather. They really separated, and it became his own entity. So we say our business was founded in 1935. That's when my grandfather started it on the pest control side. And then it just started to take off. That was the true the thing that really resonated, I think, with our family. He went off into World War II. My grandmother ran the company. And so then when he came back, he again took over and started growing it, eventually grew to 100 employees. And it was absolutely fantastic. My father joined the business in the 70s, and he's the marketing guy. He is the marketing guru. He absolutely had a knack for it. And so what he ended up doing is he said, you know what? They're building a new highway right through Rhode Island. We need to be able to be able to put up a nice billboard right along the highway. And so they bought a building that was the most frequented part of any road in Rhode Island, right along the highway. More people pass by it than anywhere else. And so when they got together, they said, you know what? Instead of putting up a billboard, my father came up with the idea of putting up a 58-foot replica, and you can see it behind me, of a eastern subterranean swarming termite. It's exactly 920 times the size. It's 58 feet long, 9 feet high, and it weighs 2 tons. And ever since then, the brand has just taken off. It's been incredible what my father was able to do, and his foresight. You know, I think he'll be the first one to tell you he's even surprised at how much it's taken off. It's really become iconic in our area. And it's been in movies. It was in Dumb and Dumber. They actually filmed part of Dumb and Dumber 2 on our roof. It was on Family Guy. It's been on Oprah, The Today Show, Good Morning America. It's really started to make its way throughout. It actually had its own lottery scratch ticket in Rhode Island. It really has taken off, and it's become a symbol for our state that we're really, really proud of. And now my father is retired. I have 2 brothers in the business, and Kevin and Scott, and all together we're trying to take that brand that my father did so well with, and really start to branch it out into all of New England. So we opened up a branch in Maine, and Michael Cash, who was on earlier with you guys about a year ago, he's running that branch and doing a fantastic job. And then we have a branch in Connecticut, New Hampshire, and also Massachusetts. So we're trying to grow throughout the 6 New England states. And so far, it's been going really well.
No, that is awesome. Okay, I didn't know all those details.
That's incredible.
Yeah, no, that is really that's something else. You know, you hear those stories, and especially from a hard beginning, coming from nothing and growing and pushing and staying consistent with it. And that's one of the hardest things, at least I've seen in business, is just staying with it. And I'm sure there's been a ton of hard times. Nobody really sees those or talks about those or even wants to bring them back up. But I know, at least from my experience in the short time I've even been in business, we've seen so many hard times, but that's awesome that they made it for so long. Colin, so it was 1935, you said?
Yeah, 1935 was when my grandfather
Nice.
initially started the business and the pest control side of it. And that's really been the part that's continued through our family and our family legacy in the area. So next year will be 90 years, and we're really excited for that. We'll have a big celebration. But you mentioned the hard times. There's been a lot of them, ups and downs with the economy. What really surprised us 2 years ago is we had the first drought in the history of Rhode Island. And we know we're weather contingent industry. We know it can be impacted by that. But what we didn't realize is when there is a drought, how the pest pressure just evaporated basically. And so all of a sudden it's the middle of June, and we're looking at each other like, why are our phones not ringing? What is happening? And the pest pressures just were not there without the water, without the standing water. Insects weren't breeding as much, and with a lot of theories behind it. But one thing was for sure, and we talked to a lot of our counterparts throughout the region, and they experienced the same sort of thing. Where it just wasn't the same sort of pest pressure. Fortunately, we do have a substantial commercial side of our business that did help maintain us. But it was a tough year for us 2 years ago. We've since rebounded, and with all the rain we've been getting this year, we're excited because we think this is going to be our busiest year ever. We're well equipped, and we've gotten a little bit better. We've always done really well in branding. Now we're trying to hone in on the marketing side, whether that's pay-per-click, SEO, that kind of stuff, to really hone in on it, to make sure we're capitalizing on the brand, and when people are looking for us, they find us.
Oh yeah. No, that's awesome. And you've been doing it now. You've been in the industry for 12 years. What made it so you weren't in the industry in the beginning and then jumped in?
Yeah, it's been about 14 years. So in 2005, graduated Syracuse with a sports broadcasting degree, and my father really pushed us all this. There's 4 boys. He's got 4 boys. He pushed us all to go into something else. He said, "You know what? Go get an experience in the real world, away from me, away from the family. To really understand, what life is like. And if you fall in love with those careers, go pursue them, have a great time, and I wish you nothing but the best. There's no pressure to come into the family business whatsoever." And so we all went and did our own things. I love sports, and so went into sports broadcasting. I loved it. I worked for a TV station out in California, and then a TV station in Texas. Met my wife, who was a news reporter, and we talked about it. And the idea of moving around every 2 years wasn't necessarily our thing, because that's what you kind of have to do in broadcasting as you move up markets. And so we had a long talk, and I had always thought I'd come back into the family business. I really did. It's a great industry. We've always had a passion for it. Grew up around it. Absolutely loved it. And so in 2010, decided to move back and go into it. But my father, my grandfather, my brothers, all of us, when we first came back in, we're a trainee. I had to come interview with our general manager at the time. He was with us 51 years. I had to sit down, and we went through the interview process like anyone else. And he said, if you're not the best candidate, you're not getting the position. And so we had to make sure that we were professional and not taking it for granted. And then we were a trainee for a couple months, and then we were on the road, had a route for a few years, 2 years doing commercial, a year doing mosquito and tick, and eventually just all of us worked our way up. And that's the only way to do it, because you really have to understand all the workings. We did not come in and all of a sudden start making changes, or you're a manager and now you know what you're doing, because you didn't. As much as I grew up around the industry, if I didn't have that experience, it's really hard to, create new policies, or come up with what products we should use, or come up with a, new process, unless you really know what happens in the field, and what it's like to be in the field. And then we also spend time, there are a week where I'm sitting there answering phones and, trying to understand that side of the business too. And I think it's key to really understand every role, because any decision you make as a leader is going to impact everyone a little bit differently. And you want to understand all sides of the business.
Yeah, no, that's amazing that he made you do that. So when you came in and interviewed, it was literally to be a route technician?
Yeah, a trainee, and you had to be the best trainee or a good enough trainee to work your way up. Yeah, no, every step of the way. And he was a great. We're very fortunate, because we're not just a family business on our family, but we have multiple generations of other families as well. And so our general manager, his name was Dave Ponce. He was with us 51 years, 1966 to 2017. And so his family members were also part of earlier and then later generations as well. So we got 3 generations of different families at our business as well, which is really, really cool. And I hope when we talk to employees, speaks to the volume of, we try to take care of our employees. They're always number one. We always put them first, making sure it's safe, it's fun, it's rewarding. And and then one of his family members, Tony DeJesus, has been with us 45 years. He retired last year, but as our vice president, he's actually got his own radio show, and he still does that. So he's retired, but he still has a pest control call-in radio show every Saturday morning. It's won some local awards. He does a fantastic job with it.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we need his number. We need to get on that show.
Absolutely. Oh, he would love it. He would love it.
Oh yeah, that would be a blast. That's awesome. That is amazing story going through, you know, going out into the professional world, getting a career, something, somewhere else. And, your dad's making you, hey, you're coming in and you got to start from scratch. I don't care where you've been. I don't care what you know. You got to come in, you got to learn it all. And then grow from there. That you don't hear that a lot.
He and my brothers as well. One of them was doing great in the financial industry, and so when he came in, same thing. And then our oldest brother, he came in about 4 years ago, and he was an attorney. He was a very, very successful attorney. He was outstanding, and we were extremely proud of him. But he also was able to come in and join the family business. And guess what? He started as a trainee like anyone else. At night I would have him read some of our contracts and go through it and make sure that all looked good. But then the next day he's back on the road.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. But a good person to have in the business. You have an
True.
attorney
It,
that knows a
it
lot.
is it is amazing, because if there is one thing I can't stand about running a business, it's all the fine print of every contract you sign and all those little details that I don't understand the entire legal jargon of what everything means. I wish I did, but I don't, and I don't necessarily have the patience to read it all. And so he does a great job, and he looks through it all and gives me the advice. Hey, here's what you need to ask for. Here's what you sign. Here's what you don't sign. And it's been an absolute blast being able to work with both my brothers. We all bring in a unique skill set, I believe, and that really helps us work together. A lot of family businesses are all yelling at each other, and nobody really gets along too well. But we all got our strengths. We all have our lanes that we know we're responsible for, and it really helps. Where you go into work, and even if there's a disagreement, the moment you leave, your brothers, and we'll go have dinner together with all our families.
That's awesome. And was there an agreement that you guys placed from the beginning when you all came in together, or you started bringing on your brothers? Was it just a common, hey, we got to sit down and talk about this? We know we're getting into business together. We know things are going to get frustrating. Did you have that conversation prior?
I mean, it's an ongoing conversation. We have it every day, and so, but that's the only way to do it, right? You don't want to, because you don't know what you don't know. As a business develops, as we develop, as skill sets change, whatever those may be, we're always evolving, and so it's a constant conversation where, hey, is this the role I want to be in right now? Is there something else I should be doing, could be doing? And so I think because we're so open to it, it makes it pretty easy. And at the end of the day, we always step back and say, if there's a disagreement, we say, okay, what's best for the business? It's not about me, it's not about you. What is best for the business? And when you step back, the answer's right there. We almost every time we're like, okay, well, it's very clearly we should be doing this. And so that's what we go with. So I got to say, there really hasn't been any major disagreements or anything. We're usually pretty in sync, because the other thing is, it's whoever's responsible for the headaches that may come from that decision. So, if all of a sudden we want to change something with QuickBooks or the financial side, well, that's my brother Scott. So all of a sudden when things go wrong, hey, that's your responsibility. So I'll let you make that decision. It's not a headache that you'll have to deal with. Same thing for, my brother Kevin, who came in as the attorney. He's our director of administration now. If there's something on the HR side he wants to change, and well, guess what? If something happens with how we're doing payroll or whatever else, you got to deal with that headache. So go ahead. At the end of the day, you get to make that call. And so usually we're pretty open to what it is, and I think we all we're all. I don't think any of us take so much pride or ego where we're like, hey, it's my way or the highway, whether I'm right or wrong. We're pretty open to say, oh, wow, yeah, I made that decision. That didn't work out. So let's change it, and that happens every day in business, where you think you're making the right decision, and then new information comes and you're like, ooh, okay, let's change this a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, that's something that, Aaron, he has a family member here as well. So that's always a fun thing to kind of look at and, talk about. But it's something I haven't had to go through necessarily here, my family doesn't live here, so nobody works for me from my family, but it's something I've always wanted and I've always thought about, but he gets to live it. So he gets to see the ups and downs and the mistakes.
Yeah. And, Brian, you hit it on the head saying that conversation needs to happen every day because, my brother started here about 9-10 months ago.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Uh-huh.
And it's very refreshing kind of pulling ourselves back and having that ongoing conversation of, like you said, what's best for the business,
And
Yeah.
so what has it been like working with them? Are you able to have those conversations every day?
We're a lot better at it now. We're a lot better at it now.
And it's a process. It evolves over time, right? So eventually you just got to be able to have those honest conversations if something's not working and be able to figure out ways to make it work.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's a lot of fun. Like I love working with my brother, and then we get together with our family, we're planning for meeting up for Easter with my mom, and it's just cool to go inside and outside of the business with that. But I find myself getting a little bit more quick triggered and a little bit, my fuse is a little bit shorter and I have to, look internally and say, hey, just remember that business right now, okay, don't take it personally,
And the key is to be able to turn it off too. So you get together for family dinners or Thanksgiving or something, and naturally business stuff will come up because that's what everyone's been up to. But I really try so hard to turn that part off and to make sure they're my brothers, they're my parents, they're not necessarily my business partners in that sense. Because when you're with family, you don't want, whether it's good or bad, you want to be able to focus on the family. And so to try to be able to turn that off, it's hard. It's hard when you're going through any sort of challenges, especially that are top of mind. But I think that's so vitally important, not just for them in that relationship, but also for, spouses and kids, because all of a sudden you got to be able to focus on, what's going on around you. Because if you can't turn that off, you just never get away from the business, especially in today's day and age, going remote. I work remote a lot now, and it's just it's hard because all of a sudden, it's midnight and you're still doing stuff, and you just missed the kid dinner with the kids, your wife, and you feel like you're missing out on that stuff, and so you want to be able to give them that attention. So the key is just to really be able to try to turn it off as hard as it can be, and give them your undivided attention.
No, that's good advice. And when you came in, Brian, to the business, where where was it sitting, size wise? Was it pretty big?
It was about half the size. When we came in, we were doing pretty good. Very successful business. The brand was absolutely fantastic. But my father will tell you, he grew the business to a certain size and said, "Okay, we're pretty good." And so when my brothers and I came in, my father started making certain investments, better software. We changed the name from New England Pest Control to Big Blue Bug Solutions, which is the bug behind me, and that's what we were famous for, and that helped with SEO and a lot of other stuff. So we started to really hone in to make sure we could grow the business and the brand. And then as my brothers and I got into those leadership roles, we said, okay, now is the time to really grow it. So realistically, in about the last 5-6 years, we've doubled in size, and it's only been because that was truly our focus. A lot of headaches to go along with it, so I get why my father might not have wanted to do it.
Yeah.
But we feel good because we're getting closer and closer to, I think, being on the other side of it, where 6 different states, 6 different sets of laws, 6 different chemicals. In the state of Maine, you could have one set of products in one town, and you can't use those in the next town. And so it becomes so complicated. In Connecticut, they have what's called the abutters list. So if you're treating one property and someone else on the neighboring property, they want to be notified of anything you treat. They might not be your customer, but you got to make sure you keep tabs of the entire list of customers. And that's even backyard neighbors. I mean, it gets complicated. And so you got to have really sound processes in every town, every state to make sure you're on top of it. And it's a lot. It is a lot to learn. I sometimes wish we were just in one state, whether it be Texas or California, where we could have plenty of room to grow. And I said, take the most strict policies, strict anything, and I'll take it, as long as we don't have to keep changing our processes depending on what state we're in. We're in one of the most congested parts of the country, but there's 6 states in there, and so it's a lot for us to learn, but we want to make sure we got our ducks in a row. We want to make sure we're abiding by every policy as best as we understand it. And then you also got to make sure you're staying on top of it. You talk about rodenticides in California. Well, certain ones in Massachusetts, or what does it look like in Maine, or what does it look like over here? And there's just more and more of that continues to come up that we got to monitor, and it's a lot.
Oh yeah, no, and that's actually, I mean, congratulations for growing it. I mean, doubling it in size is,
Huge.
yeah, it is huge. I mean, that's a lot of businesses wish for that, you know. Um, and what were some of those struggles along the way? Because there is a lot of listeners that are just starting out. They're starting out as just a one-man show, their companies, but it was for me when we met at Safety Summit, talking to you and where you were and where I am, we were literally, I mean, we're hitting the same stuff. I mean, it's amazing. And I didn't think about it until really we started talking, and it was, you're going through the same thing I'm going through. You just have 10 times the people. So you got a bigger problem, but it's the same.
And it's not only, I mean, you could take Orkin or, Rent-A-Kill or whoever, who, 100 times our size, and they're going through the same problems too, and it's usually, boils down to people or a process, right? Is there something with a process that is causing the issues, whether it's a new regulation or vehicle issues or equipment issues, whatever that may be? It's usually something that boils down to the process, or it's a people issue. And that's probably 99% of most people's headaches, right? We wrote the process, just all we need you to do is follow this process. And sometimes it's customers, sometimes it's employees, and it's just working through those. And as you grow, it doesn't eliminate those headaches, and we have them on a regional basis, but I can guarantee you all the companies that are national, they have it on a national basis as well, because it's the same sort of thing. I think the larger you get, the harder it is to sometimes manage those problems, for sure, because, for example, for us, if something's going on in Maine, that's 3 hours away. And so that for us, that's a long trip. You spend 5 minutes, you're through the state of Rhode Island. So for us, 3 hours, that's really far away. And then same thing in, Connecticut, that's a couple hours away. So all of a sudden, if an alarm goes off at night in the building or whatever, now you're driving all the way out there to do it instead of, going down to Providence, which for me, it's 20 minutes away. Little things like that just tend to create issues. Or if a vehicle breaks down, do we have a good maintenance program that can tow the truck back, especially if you're really far north in Maine, or way near the New York City border? Those are ones that we're just learning as we go. You try to plan for everything and you think you have a good plan, and then you find out that, hey, that tow company won't do it, or something came up, or they went out of business. So now all of a sudden you're struggling to find it. And just having those protocols in place. The biggest change we made was in our organizational structure. A lot of it, for a while, as we were growing, the decisions were made by my father or than me, and a few members of our leadership team. We really expanded the leadership team, and we gave them the authority to control those without, myself, my father, my brothers micromanaging it. And I think that's really helped a lot, because they do a better job than we did. and they're able to look over it. And I think the more we were able to let go, the quicker the company grew and the better we did. But you got to have the right people in place. I feel very fortunate. We have an amazing leadership team at our company, and it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a while for people to grow into those positions, and you got to keep giving them the ability to go continue train. But Michael Cash up in Maine, who's been on here, he was a perfect example. When he was able to come in, he was able to, he knew how to run a great branch and was able to get the structure in place. He was able to help grow the brand in the area. He grew up there. He knew the area. And so that branch is just, I think since he's been up there, it's tripled in size. And so he just continues to do a fantastic job. And we're really lucky to have the leadership team we have. We don't take it for granted.
So would you say kind of the biggest struggle is people then?
Yeah, always. Yeah.
Oh,
You could have the perfect plan, but if you don't have the right people to execute it, then it doesn't matter. And then there's a customer side too. Trying to when you're dealing with the public, people in the Northeast aren't famous for being overly friendly. It might be the nicest way to put it. I appreciate it because there's no dancing around things. If we get a customer that's not happy, they'll call us and tell us exactly what they're not happy about, and I love that because then we can go solve the problem. But our office staff, and I know Vanessa, who's originally the one who told us about this podcast and avid listener, she's she and the rest of the team, they deal with a tough base of customers at times. I love our customers. 99% of the time, they're great, and they feel like they really appreciate what we do. We get tons of great letters and emails and online reviews, which is outstanding. But they get their fair share of tough situations, and our office staff does a fantastic job handling it. And I think that allows us to grow too. And so the exciting part, as we're growing, is not everywhere is as abrupt, I guess, if you want to say it, as certain customer bases. But yeah, no, it's just definitely people. It always boils down to the people.
Yeah. Getting the right people on definitely can help. And I can say that too. I think Aaron agrees with me on that. Is we've seen some of the bad go away and how much we grow as those bad apples leave. But as you bring on good people, it's amazing how much it does help, just culture wise, attitude wise, everything. I mean, it's huge. So
Yeah,
yeah.
usually they say the problem is everyone hires fast and fires slow, but it should be just the opposite, right? You should be firing fast and hiring slow to make sure you're getting the right people. And I would say that might be the biggest change we've done over the last 10 years is what our hiring process looks like. We have personality surveys, cognitive surveys. We got multiple interviews, and really making sure whoever comes aboard is a good fit to our company. And we feel really good because we have a lot of customers saying, we don't know, they deal with a lot of service companies, and they're like, we don't understand how you guys always have people that come in with a smile on their face, happy, and try to help us. But whatever you're doing, keep hiring the people you're hiring. And so as we grew to over 100 employees, that was harder. There were times we were bringing in 30 people at a time, and to find 30 quality candidates and having the time and commitment to go through that hiring process can be tough. I like to be part of the process. I like to talk to everyone before we officially bring them aboard. And when you're talking throughout, New England now and trying to travel to meet up with everybody and bringing on 30, that can be a lot. But fortunately, we've been able to do it. We have a great recruiter. His name is Brian McEwen. He's been absolutely fantastic. He wears a lot of hats at our company. So he's in charge of our sales team. He's in charge of our recruiting. He's in charge of our leadership development, and he does all three with flying colors. So he usually, by the time they get to me, it's just a happy conversation. I'm selling them on the business because I already know they're a great candidate.
No, that's awesome. So it sounds like you created a lot of the processes to streamline for growth.
As best as we can. What's funny though is as you grow, and during COVID and some of the other stuff, those processes got complicated. And so all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, we need this in one area, we need this in another area. And so our goal this year, the key word that I told everybody at the last company-wide meeting was, it's simplify. We have to simplify our processes. It's overly complicated, and we need to, if we're going to continue to scale and get bigger, we got to make sure everything's simple. Everyone's on the same page, because when you have almost 90 years worth of different types of services and different types of customers and all the stuff that's in there, it gets complicated. There are things that we might have sold 50 years ago that I didn't even, that we're not doing, we're not selling, it's just something that's not even on our radar. And so what we're really trying to do is peel off all of those things that are different from our core business and focus on our core business, the things that we sell, the things that we can do, the things we know we perform well, and just hone in on those and let that grow. And try not to, it's easy as a business owner to want to chase every last dollar, right? Like, oh, okay, somebody wants to do that and it's, $10,000. All right, let's go jump in and do it. And when you realize that the time, attention that takes away from everyone to focus on what you're really good at and what can truly scale, it has a major impact to the business that makes it not worth it. And so we try to just simplify it. Here's what we do. Here's what we do really well. Now let's grow that.
No, that's actually, yeah, that is great advice. And it is tough for a lot of people because, yeah, you do jump on those little things. You see something pop up and it's go get the money, go get the money, go get the money, go get the money. Yeah. No, and it was actually there was a guy in the office that was selling for us, and that was one thing I actually had to remind him. Was he would always freak out like, this person wants it though, and we gotta get out there now. And I'm like, hey, it's okay.
Yeah.
They're a one-time customer. They're getting that one-time service, or they're getting that one-time thing. Like, they're not reoccurring. I really don't care. Let's put them where it works. If it doesn't work, it's okay. We'll be all right.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I can see that, because even in the beginning, I wasn't pulled in every direction because it was, I was in survival mode though too.
Right.
So it's a little bit different, but I was in the survival mode of, if I don't get anything, I don't get to eat. There's no money to pay people. There's nothing. So we got to go, 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 go.
And as we're starting new branches, we tend to make more exceptions, to be transparent and honest, because it's the same sort of thing, right? When you have a branch that's 2 hours away from the bulk of your business, and we probably opened up branches, you could say, almost too far away at first, would have been smarter to grow casually and closer to where our core business was. But when we opened, if there's 2 hours away and now there's nothing for 2 or 3 technicians to do in a day, well, they have to travel 2 hours to just get their day started, and then 2 hours to go back home. And so we really, we really were willing to take on almost anything to keep them busy. And so as those branches have grown, though, we've been able to get more and more choosy over time.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. What is some advice you would give someone starting off, brand new, just barely going? What would you tell them?
It's a great question. Fortunately, I never had to go through that. We've started our branches from scratch, but and even my father never really went through it. It was really my grandfather who started it from scratch. But in my best advice would just be to soak up every last ounce of information you can. We're in the information age. It's all out there, whether it's podcasts like this, there's cost studies online of what things should be costing you. That was an eye opener for me. We fell in line pretty well, but to be able to look at certain things and what is the industry standard, where am I? And to constantly be benchmarking to that, because that way, hey, should I be paying less for my products? Should I be charging my customers more? Are the wage scale, is that on track? Are we off with that? Once you get to a certain size, health insurance, what percentage should that look like? And certain things like that. It really helps. And that's what makes this industry so special, is that there's a lot of open sharing of ideas. Podcasts like this, there's a lot of openness among peers. You and I met up, and we started talking for like 2 hours, and it's just real easy and it's like that with anyone. And I've had amazing mentors as well that I've been able to pick their brains and, to help us start to, over the last 6 years, double in size. And I'd love to tell you we're doing something really unique or different or special, but it's just listening to everybody. You listen to their ideas, you listen to what they're doing. And, I think we have a unique brand, but if you look at our, processes and stuff, it's just stuff we're picking up by other people openly sharing ideas with us. And so I think the key is just to network, make lots of friends, ask people how they've been doing it, how they operate it, and then try to mimic it, because it's real easy to talk the talk. It's really hard to walk the walk. And so many companies are they'll share everything with you, because actually being able to execute on that's the hard part.
Yeah. You know what? And I agree with you is it doesn't necessarily matter what you share, because your processes and what you do there, it's so hard for someone, even though you can literally hand them everything, it's not their process. It's not them. You have done what you've done because of you. And so you put someone else in that, it's going to change naturally because they're different. So I agree with that. It doesn't really matter what you do or how you do it. It's unique to you, and that's why it worked. And it may not work for somebody else. So you can be open, and that's what I've actually pulled. And I usually tell guys that they come on, they're brand new. I'm like, look, take what makes sense and throw away the garbage.
Exactly.
It's whatever makes sense in your head, how it works, the process is. Take that, use that. The rest, just toss it in the trash. Forget about it. It doesn't really matter, you know? And it seems to work, and it's worked for me, because that's what I do is I'll pick people's brains and I'll kind of look at it and I'll take a step back and see what they've done and say, okay, I like that. I like that. I like that. I didn't really like the rest. It's not that it's wrong. It's just, I don't like it. So I'm going to take those things and I'm going to use them.
Exactly, and that's really all we're doing for the most part. I mean, I think we have a few original ideas and things that we do that work for us. But so many times I'm hearing about something, from a peer or someone else saying, "Hey, here's something we're doing," and I'm like, "Oh, how do I adapt that to work for us?"
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I will say, you'd mentioned any advice, and I will say, once you start getting employees, what I learned from the broadcasting side, which I never, you would think broadcasting to running a business, a pest control business, what on earth do they have to do with each other? What's amazing is I find I use the skills that I learned in broadcasting more now than I ever did when I was actually in broadcasting, which is hilarious, because in broadcasting you spend most of the day accumulating information, and then maybe you're on air for 2 minutes talking about sports. Here, it's nonstop communication, making sure everybody in your organization is aligned. And I didn't appreciate the level of communication skills that any leader would truly need until being put in that position, because it is so easy where you think you're telling somebody something and they're hearing something completely different. And then it's even worse when that person goes to tell somebody else and that person goes to tell someone else. You could have it written, printed on there in every technician's vehicle, right? And they're going to interpret it one way and someone else is going to interpret it the other way. And so trying to check those boxes, clear it, when you making sure everyone is on the same page, making sure there's regular meetings to discuss it, review it. How does it apply? Because every situation might be a little bit different. Oh, this is this process works perfect in an ideal scenario, but now we came across this scenario and that process doesn't work anymore. And so trying to make sure everyone's aligned and reading the same sheet of music, that's the key to making sure that you're delivering that consistent service across the board. And that was something we struggled with, to be honest with you, as we grew and more spread out. No one was doing anything wrong. We just weren't delivering the exact same service. They might have been both solving the problems, solving the issues, but now all of a sudden, and that works as long as the customers are happy, employees are happy. But now all of a sudden, something changes, a new law, something else, our software changes, and it adds a little twist. And now all of a sudden, well, how they resolve that in Maine or Connecticut is different in Rhode Island and Mass. So now you're just complicating it. And so trying to make sure everyone is doing things in a consistent manner that works for everyone, that is key. And communication is that underlying process that really to make sure everyone's on the same page, because we did not always meet regularly with our entire team. Now we do it once a month, where every single employee, we block out an hour every morning, where the last Friday of every month, to make sure we're all on the same page going into the next month. Here's some of the changes that happened. We talk about some of the cool things that have happened with our organization. Hey, I was on the DNA podcast, take a listen, and here's the link, that kind of stuff. We make sure to go over so everyone just knows what's going on. They're informed. We had so many times where customers would call in and our call center rep wouldn't even know what they're talking about. Hey, I saw you guys on the news last night. Wait, what? We were on the news? And, we want to make sure that we're just making everyone aware of what's going on, so they feel that they have the ownership in the company, that they understand it from top down, exactly what we're doing, our theories are. We're a pretty open book now. If anyone has any questions about why we're doing what we're doing, and maybe I didn't explain it clear enough, please tell me. And there have been times I stepped on my toes a lot, not explaining things clearly. And I think I am. And then all of a sudden I go back and I listen to the recording of our Zoom or meeting or whatever it is. And I'm like, man, I totally get why people thought that. I did not say that clearly. Yeah.
No, that's another good thing you said there is, when you do make a mistake, you're owning up to it. When you're not explaining something clearly, it's, hey, I know I didn't. Here, let me re-explain that. Or do you understand? And I have to remind myself to do that too. Cause I wrote a little note to my wife yesterday on a little board that we have on our refrigerator. And she called me and she's like, do you mean this or do you mean that? And I'm like, oh crap. Yeah. Okay. I guess I didn't write it exactly, perfect. I'm like, no, but this. And so, but I get that. It's owning up to that mistake too. And it's understanding, hey, maybe I didn't explain that correctly. And I want to make sure that I'm clear on that so they understand it. And now I understand that they understand.
Right.
My initial instinct anytime something goes wrong isn't, hey, why did the customer say this, or why did they not understand, why did the employee not understand? It's usually, is there something that I did, a part of my process or in a manager's process or the handbook or written process that made this unclear, so we did not put them in a position to succeed? And so that's my initial. It's so easy to say, oh, why did the technician spray this, or why did they run over here and waste the time, or it looks like they were driving around for an hour doing nothing. What the heck was going on? And usually when you get to the bottom of it, there's usually a good reason for it. Maybe a misunderstanding, a canceled customer, a GPS issue. Usually there's something, and a lot of the times it falls back on myself or someone on the leadership team, like, hey, we didn't communicate this clearly enough. Certainly there are times if they're not listening, and you go through that discipline process of written warnings and whatever else. But in general, a lot of the times it just comes down to miscommunication, and everyone learns a little differently. I might say it to you, or you might say something to me, but I'm a very visual person. If I see it visually, I'm like, all right, that clicks for me. If you just say it to me, sometimes it goes in one ear out the other. As much as I want to retain it, it's just harder for me. I'm a very visual person. And so you got to adapt to different people, whether it's customers or employees, to make sure they all understand what you're talking about. And the initial instinct is, blame me. Like and I think that creates a environment where everyone's open to talking about their mistakes. Nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes. And so when it comes up, that's okay. My father's biggest saying was always, the only mistake is not learning from your mistake, and so once something happens, you want to be able to resolve it. You want to be able to move on and just make sure it doesn't happen again. And so I think that it helps with a very good work environment. We're really proud to have recently been named the best place to work, and I think that's a big part of it. It's just being open with everyone and saying, listen, I'm not perfect. Nobody is. Let's just work towards a solution. Let's not let our egos get the best of us, where we're saying, oh, there they go again, or they're messing up again. No, what should the future look like? How do we make sure this doesn't happen again? And instead of getting caught up with the past, this is what it should look like. And you reset those expectations. If someone's a repeat offender and they keep going through it, well, yeah, then you got to have those conversations that are not always easy. But in general, you want to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. And we always try to do that and look at ourselves first. And I think it's really hard when you're getting, as an owner, you're getting pulled in a million different directions, right? And it's just, all of a sudden you're having a conversation about marketing, and now you're having a conversation about, hey, am I going to have to fire this person? Now you're having a conversation about, what products I should order, right? And you got to be able to have that capacity to go back and forth as best as you can. And it's hard. And so it's real easy just to jump to a conclusion and pull a quick trigger, especially when it comes to employees that are right there and you're able to voice the brunt of your anger and get it all out, because it can get frustrating. But I think the more patience somebody has in a leadership role and giving everyone the benefit of the doubt, it usually goes a long way, because most of the time people are just trying to do the right thing. And I truly do believe that. And so I don't think anyone's trying to take advantage. I think sometimes they get frustrated because they don't know and they don't fully understand it. And so the more you can make it clear, then they're going to continue to try to do a good job.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. We just have we have one right now that we're dealing with. And I'm sure it's a misunderstanding, and we'll get to the bottom of it actually later today. So it's good that we're talking about it. But that is something that I have to remind myself too, is, look at the situation as a whole and what's really going on, and what's really happening, and pulling yourself back from the situation and saying, hey, let's just figure out why. And then from there, we can address it. If it is them, then great. We'll address that. If it's us, great, but let's figure it out. It's just a learning experience, so it doesn't happen in the future with that direct person and us. And it's figuring it out.
And the more you grow, that becomes a daily occurrence. And so it's and then eventually you want to find the people that can handle it, and maybe even handle it better than you. And that's what we've done recently. We now have a director level of leadership roles, and they're the ones that handle it at first. And then eventually, if it has to get escalated, I'll get involved. But they're the ones that are handling it regularly, and just making sure they're equipped with those tools to not jump to conclusions, and not ready to, anytime you elevate someone from, for example, a technician to a supervisor, that's their initial instinct, right? And I was a perfect technician. Now this person's not doing what they're supposed to be doing. I'm going to jump all over them because they're not doing it. And I get it. It's a very normal reaction. But sometimes they might not realize, they might not have got the same training. They might not have gotten the same advice or the same know-how of how to do something. So to give them benefit of the doubt, go with them, show them exactly how to service this account, make sure we're all on the same page moving forward. And then if they continue to do the mistakes, then it has to be addressed. But I will say, I don't think there's ever any yelling at our office. At the end of the day, it's either you're performing what you're supposed to be doing or you're not. There's no, we've never really had a reason to yell at anybody. I've been to I worked at workplaces where there's a lot of yelling, and it's just not a great environment to be around. And at the end of the day, we compliment in public, we, critique in private. And so if we have to have those conversations, we're not calling out anybody in front of the whole company or anything like that. It just, at the end of the day, it's not the environment we wanted. That works for some cultures, not our culture. And so, but then you get the opposite impact where people say, well, this person continues to do this and it's not getting addressed. And it is getting addressed. It's just being addressed in private. We're not going to, let everyone know if it's an HR related issue that, we're working through it. But usually people see it at the end when they see people that are either stepping up or they're not with the company anymore, and there's no yelling. It's just, here's what we found. This needs to improve. If it doesn't improve, then we have to make some decisions. But it's a pretty simple conversation. We try not to, again, overcomplicate it, because there's no reason to kick and scream and yell. That usually doesn't get through to most people as much as you want it to. It's usually just having that open, honest conversation.
Yeah, that's actually what me and Aaron have been focusing on a lot over the past couple of months is, our little motto. I think that wasn't really deemed a motto, but we've been saying it so much is, take feelings out of it. Don't get feelings involved. Take your feelings out of it. This is the process. This is what needs to be done. This is how it needs to be done. I don't need to yell at you. I'm not upset. I really don't care. This is what you got to change. This is what you got to do. And if you don't, these are the consequences. But it's really that simple. I don't want to get mad. I don't want to be stressed. I don't want to be, always worried. It's just take the feelings out. and creating those processes have helped us do that, is taking the feelings out of it. So there is no yelling. There's no need for it because
And what I'll even say is it's the exact opposite feelings. We usually come at it from a side of love. Like, there's nothing we wouldn't do for our employees. Absolutely nothing. Like, you name it, and we would bend over backwards to make it work. We always try to do that. It's always been part of our history. And so if someone's not performing, the conversation is, what can we do to get you there? We want to see you succeed. We're doing everything we can to make this work for you. And so we will always show the compassion, the love for them, their family. We'll do whatever it takes. And some people, they're going through personal struggles, divorce or whatever it may be. Someone's sick in their family, taking care of relatives. I mean, that unfortunately is happening to, a large majority of our employees, and we get it, and we'll do whatever we can. But they still have to perform their job duties, and the job still has to get done. And so we'll say, listen, we want to see you succeed. We'll do whatever it takes. Help us get you there. And if they don't have a good way of doing it, and then they can't get there, well, then we got to make some decisions. But if there is a way where it's just, hey, if I can come in every day at 8 a.m. instead of 7 a.m., or if I can, just be out at 3 o'clock, that'll really help me. And so, yeah, like we can work our schedules around to make that work. We do that with every employee, and we'll do whatever it takes to make it so they're successful. I don't want to fight their schedule. I just want to know while they're here, they're doing everything they can to be a top performer.
No, that's good. And I know I've been asking a lot. I'm sure Aaron is eager to jump in and ask a few questions.
I'm soaking in everything I can.
There you go.
No, honestly, Brian, one of the main goals I was really interested in, because, on the business side, Daniel and I have been, have had a huge acquisition push. We're growing so rapidly, and I've been, spinning my wheels and making sure that we're maintaining, like you were talking about before, like a high quality, uniform service throughout. And I'm finding myself getting pulled towards like my instant knee-jerk reaction is a little bit of frustration. And, so I go into this training mode, and, we're doing training and things are good. And then, I'm focusing on sales, and sales are good. And, I love that sales is putting pressure on operations. But, I just wanted a little bit of, which you've answered, but I just wanted a little bit of tips or insight on what's worked for you, as you grow so rapidly. What are some of the best things to focus on for maintaining that level of service?
Yeah, and I think it's simplifying it, and certainly when it comes to an acquisition, since I've been running the business, we have not acquired a company. All of it has been organic, which has been exciting to grow that quickly, just organically. But I know through acquisitions and through talking to a lot of peers, but also as we've grown, it's just simplifying the process. And even if it's a company coming in with their own, that you acquired, with their own standards, with their own ways of doing it, I think it's just having a simple process with what you do. Don't overcomplicate it. Here's how we service a normal residential customer. It takes, half hour, 45 minutes, whatever it is. And here's exactly what we're going to do. Everybody on the same page, having a checklist. Here's the checklist. Is everyone checking it? If everyone's on a mobile tablet or whatever it is, here are the things that you got to make sure you do. Are you marking off conducive conditions? Are you making sure this happens? Did you greet the customer? All those things you want to make sure, and then you just supervise them to that. One of the big game changers for us recently is having a couple of people in a quality control position, which has really helped. So we have, before all of our work goes out every single day, someone in our office, her name's Andrea. She does a fantastic job, and she is going through the entire schedule to make sure everything's lined up properly. So a customer that only needs a specific technician, okay, that's where it's supposed to be. We're minimized drive time, all those things, everything looks good. And then afterwards, when it's all done, we have another quality control person. Her name is Ashley, and she's been with us 10 years now. She is fantastic. She goes through everything, and she says, okay, did the service technician do what they were supposed to do? Did the office staff put in the right notes? And she's got parameters that she goes by to make sure it's all there. And then we give people the stats back. And so the office staff will know how they graded out for, usually by the time we're done accumulating it by a month, some depending on which ones we're looking at, it could be by the week. But by giving them all that feedback, whether it's the office staff or the service specialist, they're consistently finding out how they're doing. And then they just want to do better, because people just want to, for the most part, do a good job in their job. And so the more we're giving them that feedback, that has really helped, because it's one thing to have a simplified process, but people will fall back into their habits of doing what they know, doing what they do. But you need the quality control component of it to really give them that feedback. And at first, it was a little bit of a shock to our system because we never had that before. And so people were like, hey, what are all these, what's this all about? And I think it put everyone a little bit on the fear side, like, hey, does this mean, I might not have a job? And it's no, we're just trying to give you the feedback. So everyone's constantly improving, everyone's getting better. And I think now we're at a point where people appreciate it and they want to see their scores go up. They want to see that they're performing well. And it's truly been a game changer for us, because again, it's one thing to have the written out process. It's another thing to do the follow-up parts of it. And Ashley, for her part, 40% of our service orders, she's been able to check on a regular basis. Which is astronomical. We're not going to check every single one, but getting to almost half of our service orders to, and it's not necessarily a, let me read every fine detail and everything, but we got certain things that we're going to look at to make sure they're falling in the where they should fall in. And that has been a huge game changer for us. And we grew to a size where we could afford those positions. And certainly not everyone can have that. But even if there's a miniature version of that for any size company, just so that everyone knows, hey, this is getting spot checked, and it doesn't always have to be in the field, because that can take a lot of energy and time. We do have supervisors that do monitor everything going on in the field, but again, that's a lot of spot checking. It's the same thing with the office. You want some spot checking on that side across all the positions, and it's allowed us to really grow. We also created what we call our war room, which is where we have all the statistics for our company. And so we used to not measure all that many things. And now I feel like we measure way too many things. And again, part of our simplifying. But we have in our war room, his name is Luis. He's our chief strategy officer. And it's his office. And all throughout his office is all the statistics for us, from MPS scores, EMPS scores, our callback percentage, cancellation rate, you name it, all how long people are on the phone for, all the numbers that have to do with our company. We have them all over the walls, so then we can monitor and see how we're doing and progressing. And while we're measuring way too much right now, our hope is to hone in on, hey, if we really just focus on these 5 things, these 10 things, that'll have the biggest impact to our business. And so that's really what we're doing right now, is trying to hone in on certain ones and to really help have the most dramatic impact. But the quality control side was the game changer for us. You gotta expect what you inspect.
Dang.
No, that's great. And that's actually very relevant. Daniel and I are like right now, and we're probably going to continuously be working on and building leadership team as we grow and expand. And we're even having some conversations like, what positions do we even need? We're trying to think outside the box. And like we were talking about earlier, just like listening to you, getting those advice about quality control, putting people in those positions that weren't even there. And those are just some of the things that at least Dan and I are dealing with on a day-to-day. But that's great.
Yeah.
And I don't think it has to be 40% of your service orders, but even if it's 5 or 10%, so everyone can know, hey, someone's going to check this, because you want to make sure what's going out to a customer is, makes sense. Sometimes people take shortcuts, especially if you have standard forms that you kind of fill out. But then if they forget to fill out a spot or whatever else, and all of a sudden you're reading it and you're like, if I was a customer, I would have no idea what this even means. And you want to make sure that it's going to be something that is, we've had ones where it was, what was it? It was like, made sure that the gates were locked for the yard, and the person didn't have a fence. So like, again, things that sound good if you're putting it in for everybody, but if it doesn't apply, then they're going to be like, did they even treat my house? So certain things that you want to make sure everyone truly understands.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Brian, I know we came up on an hour. I didn't want to take up too much more of your time. Is there any last words you want to leave with everybody before we end this?
No, I thank you guys so much. Huge fan of the podcast. You guys are doing a fantastic job. Love seeing you at all the different trade shows, and just keep it up.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brian, for coming on and being a guest. We do have National Pest Management Month coming up. That's next month. So if you have any employees you want to send our way, we'd love to have them on as a pest guest.
Sure.
And we're going to be giving out kind of a swag box, so hoodie, shirt, and everything to the one with the best story. So
Ooh, okay. I will. We got a bunch who have great stories, so I will make sure that I'll have them compete over this one for which one we nominate. Okay.
yeah, please, yeah, send us a couple. It doesn't really matter. We want as many as we can get. So if you can send us a couple, that'd be awesome.
You got it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brian, for coming on, and we will definitely have you back on. So be prepared, especially for that 90th celebration. I hope we are invited. We will show up.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, anytime. Thank you both so much.
All right. You have a good one.
Thank you, you too.
All right. There we go. Brian Goldman.
The man.
The man.
The myth.
Thank you.
No, it's really good. Really good. Oh my God. It's refreshing, and it's cool that, Michael Cash, we had that episode sometime last year, months ago. It's awesome that he's doing well, and just Brian's perspective and tips on, how that company started and where his position sits now.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
It honestly is. It's so cool to see that. But, the better thing about that is letting all these guys understand is what you're going through. We're all going through on a different level and a different scale, even on different positions, most, even Brian is on so many different levels doing so many different things. He's going through the same crap you're going through.
Exactly.
He's going through the same crap I'm going through.
Exactly.
So it's all there. And that's where we can learn so much from these people as they're coming in and they're saying, hey, look, it doesn't matter where I sit. He's at 70 on the top 100 and he's still going through the same stuff we're going through and we're not even on it.
Yeah.
So it's like it doesn't matter where you sit. We're all going through the same problem. Now, how you take care of it and what you're doing, it may be a little bit different. But we're all going through it, so it's always good and refreshing to hear. And that's what I really enjoyed and I even told you right when I got back, I was like, dude, I met Brian. This is what was going on. Like, we're going through the same crap. Like it's insane to see that. Even where he sits, it's like, we're all going through it. It doesn't matter. It didn't matter where we were. I mean, I was even talking to safety guys that were working for Orkin and they're doing $1 billion in a year. And it's like, it didn't matter.
Same thing.
Yeah. Their little department in such a massive organization, they're going through the same thing.
Yeah.
It's everybody's going through it. So that's really refreshing to hear and hopefully gives a lot of energy, to the guys that are going through it. You're not this unique, special thing. We're all going through it.
Yeah.
It's all happening to us. So, but thanks, Brian, again, for coming on. And remember, Pest Guest, we need you guys.
Yes.
National Pest Management Month. So
please, the great episode, first of many that we're going to put out this month. And if you were paying attention, we are giving out a swag box with a lot of this new merch that we're coming out with. I'm wearing a hoodie. He has a shirt. We have hats. We had a couple other throw-ins that we're going to put in there. Episodes drop every Monday, Thursday, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook.
Yep.
And directly on our website, what's great is you have a spot, like fill out a little questionnaire, whether or not you want to be a guest or you just have questions for the end of the month Q&A. But thank you so much for the support, and thank you for listening to the DNA Pest Control Podcast.